Hello! In this video I'm going to have a look at the Innovv K3 camera and see how I can fit it onto my Moto Guzzi V85TT. I wanted one of these cameras when they first came out, but I'm not going to lie, I felt they were quite expensive for what they were, especially as they're only 1080p. However, I finally decided to get one, mainly as there don't seem to be many quality alternatives around at the moment. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that the standard of driving in the UK has become terrible in the last few years. It's kind of like people just don't give a shit anymore, quite frankly. Now, I understand some people are worried. If you fit a dash cam, you might incriminate yourself by using it. But to be honest, I think the benefits outweigh the risks. And if you're really worried about your driving being captured on film, well, maybe you're part of the problem. So there are lots of cheaper cameras out there. Check out Bennett's Bike Social, I think it was, that's covered quite a few. And yes, there is a K5 model, which is 4K, I think. But the camera is pretty bit of a chunker, and I don't really want a big boxy camera like that. I want something fairly unobtrusive. Long story short, I found a 10% discount code from a real YouTuber. I think it was Teapot1. It's normally Teapot1, and I got one. Okay, so allegedly everyone loves an unboxing, so that's what I'll do now. Apparently I'm supposed to hold the mic in close so you can hear lots of tapping and scratching while I whisper over the top. Or maybe I could attack it with a battery-powered chainsaw or an axe or something. Or I could just open the bloody box and see what's inside. Let's have a look. Okay, nicely packaged. Technical support card, frivolous piece of paper. Camera unit itself, well protected in foam, doesn't want to let go, just get out. So not that exciting, lots of cameras, mounts, DC converter, which I'm guessing is basically the power supply. Yep. This will be all the various gubbins for trying to mount it on the bike. Destructions. That's about it really. This is the recording box, or the brains of the unit. Lens. That's a cardboard. Control panel. I've actually ridden some bikes with these on. I'm not really sure why there's a control panel. To me, I just want the camera to come on with ignition and turn off later on, but it is what it is. Two cameras, both the same as far as I'm aware. As I said, the brain box, GPS unit. There should be a microphone here somewhere as well. I thought it included a microphone. Doesn't appear to. Doesn't bother me because I'm not that worried about recording audio, if I'm honest. Okay, I think that's the slickest unboxing on YouTube, surely. Nice. I'm going to go off and look at the bike and try and work out where all this gubbins will actually fit. One moment please. Quick update. After some more rummaging, I did find the microphone. It was in the box with all the mounts, so everything is here. One thing I will say, just to add, is I kind of feel for the price. They could have chucked an SD card in with the box with it. You know, they do sell them on their website. I got this one from the Evil Empire for about 15 quid, I think it was. The prices fluctuate all the time, you know how it works. So I think it's about 19 hours recording, loop recording with 256 gig. So for the price, I thought it was worth having, but you know, they could chuck this in really. Wouldn't cost them that much wholesale, I'm sure. Anyway, back to going off to the bike to try and see where to fit it. See you later. Okay, back in the Fat Cave now. I had a quick look at the bike, and I assumed that it would be pretty simple to fit this, given all the various tubes and brackets sticking out all over the V85, but I don't think it's going to be quite that straightforward. It's going to have to be a bit of disassembly going on to get to bolts and things where I can actually bolt these cameras on. So I thought, before I do anything, I better check that the system actually works. So this unholy mess here is me testing, seeing whether it works. The instructions have a I guess you'd call it a wiring guide. Shows you where everything plugs in. That's all pretty straightforward. So you've got the two cameras, the remote control indicator thingammy, the brain box with the SD card which I just put in it, power supply, don't know if you can see there's a little LED glowing that says it's got 12 volts, GPS and microphone. This is an old school car jump starter thing which I've had for years, so it's quite handy for things like this. Oh, bloody seagulls! Right, where was I? This is an old school jump starter thing. It's not particularly powerful by modern standards, but it's handy. It's for a 12 volt supply. So I've just connected the negative to the negative clamp, the positive to the positive clamp, figures. And then this is your switched wire, which needs to go onto some sort of switched feed on the bike so that the system can tell when the power's turned on. So I believe if I attach this, hold it in place, we'll have 12 volts, and I think it takes something like 10 seconds maybe, and if it's working this thing should start lighting up. Oh, green light come on, that's a good start. So I can't tell whether the camera can see that or not. The GPS is flashing orange. I would expect that because we're in the shed and it's probably not going to get a signal. The microphone is flashing likewise, and the camera is green, which I assume means it's recording. So if this is working, I'll put in some video now taken by the camera itself with the audio recorded by the camera itself. Obviously it's just going to be random blurry images of my workshop. GPS is flashing because it doesn't have a signal, no surprise there. Wi-Fi is flashing because it's not connected. I assume that's for the app, which I haven't put on my phone yet. And by my phone's recording this anyway. So this appears to work. When you disconnect the trigger wire, the yellow wire, it carries on recording for 10-20 seconds, something like that as well, so after the ignition's turned off. I tested that off camera, so I know that works, but the main thing is it works. So I can now go and spend what to you will be no time at all, but to me will probably be quite a few evenings and a lot of swearing trying to work out how to fit this thing. So I'll catch you when I've done that. Okay then, Croeso and all, welcome back. For you, a mere moment. For me, well, quite a few more days than I was expecting, to be fair. Half of that was just obviously puzzling out where to put bits and pieces. I thought because the V85 is covered in lots of tubes and frame and so on, it'd be really easy to fit, but yeah, it wasn't quite that straightforward. So initially, I wanted to put the front camera up in here somewhere. There's a little bracket, you can't really see it, it's where the headlight pivots. And the bike was like this, and parked on its stand, and I thought that would be a good place, right in the middle, tucked away. But obviously the front mudguard moves from side to side when you turn the wheel, and there actually isn't any room in there at all, so that idea was very quickly abandoned. So this is my solution for the front camera. I've just added one of the L brackets that come in the kit to the bolt that the right hand side spotlight bolts to. There's just about enough room here for it to sit. It's kind of touching the side of the spotlight, just about, so we'll have to see if I have to move it again. The downside of this is you do get the mudguard in the view of the camera, so I'm not quite sure. I might well move it, but I'm not really sure where yet. I was wondering whether I could somehow clamp it down here or from here, but it just didn't fit very well, so it actually fits there, so I'm going to leave it there for the moment. But a more central view would be better. Maybe I can do something behind the screen or on my bracket for my sat nav or something. I'm not really sure yet, but that's unobtrusive and that'll do for the moment. And so for the remote control, as you can see, I've stuck it in the vacant space here to the right hand side of the bike display. Bloody seagulls. Downside of living near the coast or in a city, or well, just about anywhere in the UK. Anyway, as I was saying, the remote control is stuck in that space, which is kind of the right sort of size. I believe if you've got the factory alarm fitted, there might be a flashy LED there, not sure. I didn't really want to stick it to the mirror stalk. I wanted it to be reasonably unobtrusive, and it's tucked out the way out of the weather there, and it seems to work quite well. So the wires are at the back there, clamped to the frame tube, and then they run down and I've just zip tied them to the bottom of this bundle of wiring, so they run down under the base of the tank. And I'll, as I said, I'll try and put some photos in that show how they run. I ran them a few times till I found somewhere that I was reasonably confident wouldn't get trapped by the tank or any other sort of places where there might be issues with the wire getting trapped. Didn't have to remove this cover, didn't have to remove this cover. When you take the tank off, you'll see from the photo there's a plastic piece underneath, and this outer tank cover actually curves over that plastic piece, so you have to just sort of pull a little bit to get the tank to pop over the top of that, and likewise when you put the tank back on, you've got to just stretch the plastic a little bit so it clips back over the top. It's not a big problem, but the first time you move the tank on any bike, it's always a bit worrying that you're going to break something, or I'm not quite sure how it goes back together, but it was fairly straightforward. And then it runs along underneath, and again I'll try and show some photos, and we'll come round to the back. So the wires then run underneath this plastic tray, and again I've got some photos, and they run along the side here and out to the wiring bundle back here, which I'll show you in a minute. There's plenty of space under this tray. I was going to take the tank off, and I was fiddling with this clip, paranoid I was going to break it. You can get it off by squeezing the white tabs together, but I didn't know that at the time and I didn't want to break it, so I managed to do all the wiring without actually removing the tank. You can lift it up. If you check out Cubby Sue's video, if I remember, I'll try and put a link down below, and he's got a video where he takes the tank off, and it was that video that shows you how to get this connector apart, and in fact you can lift the tank up and put it on a piece of wood, and that's what I did to get enough space to run the wires underneath. So if you don't want to take any connectors off, you don't have to. So for the rear camera, I've actually got a top box plate here, and in the end, after a lot of puzzling, I've just attached it to the top box plate, and I'll show you that from above in a second. No, I haven't removed the lens cover yet either. But again, I couldn't really find anywhere centrally to put the camera, so I'm quite glad I had the top box plate on. It made it a bit easier. So this is my top box plate, and there's a bolt there that holds the L bracket with the camera on. I'm not really sure whether to Loctite it or anything like that. I'll probably leave it as it is for the moment and just see how it goes. Top tip, don't be like me, don't use a screwdriver to lever off plastic parts because you chew up the plastic. Use the proper tool. There's two of these covers and they just pop off to give you access to the mounting plate. So that works quite well, but only if you've got a top box plate. I'm not really sure how you'd fit the camera on the back without one. You're going to have to devise some sort of clamp to the frame, I think, but that's the same on any bike. You've just got to puzzle out where these things go, haven't you? GPS unit I've just stuck with some Velcro to the back here, and when the seat's in place it doesn't touch this, so that's nice and clear. And then I ran the cables for this down the side, and then just in under here there's a bit of a gap in the plastic, so they ran them in here and then back to the wiring. So we'll look at the wiring now. Okay, so I've used the existing socket for the aftermarket OEM USB connector. So there's a power socket which is switched, and that's important for the camera power supply so it knows when the ignition's on. So I literally just used one of those amp super seal connectors that I bought a whole pack of a few years ago, and I've just crimped and soldered and heat shrinked just the positive wire. I've left the negative one unattached. I'm assuming that's going to be okay. The two connectors for the power unit go directly onto the battery. Power unit's in here with some Velcro holding it in place. The main brain box is here again with some sticky Velcro stuck to the side. That fits quite neatly under there. All the wires individually, I kind of coiled up all the spare wire and tried to sort of tuck it in out of the way as much as possible, leaving things like the diagnostic port free for when it gets serviced. And that's the MIA box for anyone that's got that. That's the built-in Bluetooth comms thing for the bike, which works occasionally. So it's reasonably tidy. Oh yeah, the microphone's here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I might try some vlogging. You never know. Yeah, so it's reasonably tidy. It does take up quite a lot of space. I could probably compress it down a bit more. I've kind of left all the wires individually bundled at the moment in case I decide I want to move the cameras around a bit. I did have some tools and some other bits and bobs under here, and the space for those is mostly gone now, which is not the end of the world, but I have to see what I can cram back under here again. And that's pretty much it. It took a couple of evenings. One evening was spent kind of taking the bike to bits, trying to work out where to put the cameras. Mainly, the main thing for me was how to run the wires under the tank, if I'm honest. The rest of it's fairly straightforward. And then another evening just literally bolting the cameras up, running the actual wires, and sort of neatening everything up, putting it back on the bike. It all seems to work, so fingers crossed. One thing I have noticed is this power LED. You probably can't see it on the phone, but there's a power LED which is always slightly glowing here, and I don't like that because that makes me think there's basically some parasitic voltage now. So normally this battery will go for a long time without being used, you know, it doesn't need to be charged, and I wonder how much power that's drawing. I guess I could measure it, but I don't know how smart that box is, whether it will cut off if the voltage drops, whether it's meant to be powered all the time, not sure. I'll be keeping an eye anyway on the battery, making sure the voltage is okay. When you turn the ignition on, that light changes to blue to show that there's actual power being provided to the cameras. That's pretty much it for fitting. Going to put the rest of the bike back together now and go for a test ride, see what the footage looks like. See you after that. Hello again. It's 5 months since I filmed most of this video. Oops, oh well. Life gets in the way sometimes, eh? Anyway, let's try to wrap it up with a summary of my experience now the camera's been on the bike for a while. Firstly, you may have noticed from the on-bike footage that the speed, date, time weren't working. They should be set automatically from the GPS. However, I found that it was taking a long time to get a GPS fix, as in I could ride easily 20 miles or more and it still would be flashing the GPS icon on the control panel. The instructions did say to avoid running the GPS wire near the microphone cable. I did avoid that, but as you saw I ran it next to the rear camera wire. Anyway, short story long, I moved the GPS wire over to the other side of the bike so it was on its own, and now the GPS gets fixed straight away. So that's something to bear in mind if you're fitting one of these to your bike. I guess the GPS signal is pretty weak, so the cable's susceptible to interference from other cables or signals. Secondly, I've been quite impressed with the noise cancelling from the microphone actually. It's only shoved under the seat, but it really clips out the wind noise quite well. At some point I'm tempted to fix it inside my lid and see how well it records voice whilst riding along. Although, given how long it's taken me to finish this video, don't hold your breath for that one anytime soon. Thirdly, I've not had any issues with a parasitic drain on the battery. The power supply for this camera seems to indeed draw very little power when the bike is left for a while. I'm not sure whether enabling the parking mode would change that though. Fourthly, the app. It works okay, but it does seem a little flaky. It doesn't always show the files on the bike when you connect to it. You have to remove the card and download the files from it. Looking at reviews, this is a not uncommon complaint, so I'm hoping it'll be fixed by an update at some point. I think as it's taken so long to get this video done, I will end it here. Many thanks for making it this far. I'll do my best to answer any questions or comments people have down below, and other than that, see you next time.